Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for our candidate development session entitled Navigating the TPE Website and Interview Scheduling. We have our lovely TPE team here this evening to walk you through some things and give you some tips and advice and things along those lines. And so we'll start off with some introductions. And so my name is Kirby R. Gibson. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I serve as the chair-elect for the TPE Planning Committee, which means that I'll be serving as the chair for the Planning Committee for TPE 2022. And then I'll pass it on over to the lovely Kirsten Fox.
Great. Hello, everyone. I am Kirsten Fox, she, her, hers, and I am the director of the Placement Exchange. So I recognize a few emails from some folks that I have been responding to. So I am often on the other end of some of the technical elements of TPE, but I have the privilege of getting to work with our wonderful volunteers who work tirelessly in their own day jobs and still give all they can to TPE to make the experience as great as it is, especially for our candidates. So with that, I'll actually turn it over to our candidate development kind of chairs. So Christian, you're who I see first, so I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christian Rafael Sparrow. I use the pronouns he, him, his. I'm a assistant director for staff development, engagement, and onboarding at George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. And I serve as one of the co-chairs for candidate development. So I'm excited to be here in this space. I see a few individuals from past workshops. And so we're going to bring that energy and that life to the space. And I'm going to pass it to my amazing co-partner, Nick.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Bates. I serve as an assistant director for Thurman Center Networks at the Howard Thurman Center for Common Ground at Boston University. I am not on camera yet as I am finishing up my commute in the lovely Boston weather, but I'm happy to have you all here and to learn more about navigating this website and also answer any questions that you may have about TPE.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone, for sharing the introductions. These lovely faces are just a few of the faces that you'll have the opportunity to continue to see during the TPE virtual event or anything TPE related after or leading up to the event. And so we are here to be of a resource and assistance to you all. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we jump on in. So just ask for folks to mute themselves just to reduce any feedback that may come through. We are recording this session, and so if you have some peers that wanted to be here but unfortunately wasn't able to, we will be recording the session, and then it will be uploaded to our Facebook page to be accessible to everyone else shortly after, within the next couple days or so. And then if you have any questions, feel free to utilize the chat. You can send them directly in the group, or you can instant message or direct message, I should say private message. Myself, Kirsten, Christian, Nick, and we'll make sure to get them answered for you. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So let me use the cliche, let me share my screen line as I get ready to share my screen with you all. All right, if you can give me a thumbs up that folks can see the screen with reactions, or physical thumbs up is great. Awesome, thank you. So hopefully most of you all are familiar with this website. It is the Placement Exchange website, or TPE website. To actually get to the website, it is theplacementexchange.org, not .com. That'll take you to not the TPE website. And so wanted to make sure you all are in the right space. And just want to get you all oriented to what is on our home page here. So in the upper left-hand corner here, we have our drop-down menu, or to the left menu. That will bring up a variety of different tabs for you to click through. So you see there's one for employers, candidates, the online job board, the actual event, resources, and then about TPE. And so we'll get into a little bit more details with that shortly, but just wanted to orient you to what's here, as well as info in terms of how to sign up for a registration, like registration or sign up for a TPE account. And then on the left of the screen, you'll see this kind of like arrow going into a door. If you click onto that, it will then bring you to this page here to actually log into your TPE account. And so if you do not have an account, you can sign up for one today by clicking this link. Otherwise, you would just log in with the information that you use to create your account to access your profile, dashboard, and all of those things that we'll be going over shortly. And then if you just click on the placement exchange here in the middle, it will direct you back to our home page. So if you want to get started in terms of searching for jobs, the first thing you see when you get to the page is the search for jobs here option. And there's a couple ways in which you can do this. If you have a particular position in mind, a particular institution in mind, or a keyword in mind, you can use this text box feature here to type in institution of your, or a role of your choice. And so let's say, I'm just gonna put director in just to be vague. And if you press enter or search, it will then bring you to the job search board, and any type of position that has the word director mentioned in it, whether it's in the title, the description, and so forth, the search will populate these roles for you. And so as you can notice here, it's across various functional areas, different levels, institutional types, and so forth. And then I'm gonna go ahead, if I want to clear out that search, I can go ahead and click this X here. And then it'll essentially clear out like the filter that you put up in terms of the what you were searching for. And so right now there are no like filters whatsoever. But if you wanted to just look for what has been posted each day, you can easily just click on, I'll go back for a second. You can just easily click on search, and it will bring you to the job search page. And so jobs are posted daily. I don't know how often daily, but I think it's like they refresh once a day, right, Kirsten? You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, they actually they post this live based on when the employer posts it. So there could be an employer who posts a job between now and the end of the session today, and then there'll be an additional job on there.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. But yeah, jobs are added at any time of the day. And so you can see the date in which the jobs were most recently posted. And then they'll be listed in the chronological order in which they were posted. You'll see the job title. You'll see the location in which the job is at. You'll also see the institution. And then to the right, you'll see this button that says View Job. And so if you click that, that will give you more information about the position and so forth. And so it'll bring you to this page here, and it'll give you the institution name and so forth. And then if you scroll down, you'll see some job details. And so the job type, you'll see location, how many positions are available, institution type, institution size, as well as an employer ID. This is just the way that we on our end are able to keep track of what the position is. To the right, you'll see a section that says benefits, and it talks about salary range, if they decide to put that there, any housing, if that is provided, and so forth. And then at the bottom, you'll actually get a position description. Some folks may just copy and paste what they may use on their HR website for their institution. Others may use this space as an opportunity to provide some additional information about how to apply or things to consider. And then to the left of that, you'll see various qualifications as it relates to education required, major preference, years of experience in which they ask for, and so forth. And then if you scroll down, you'll see an option too where it says log in to apply. And so if you do that, and we'll do that in a second, if you log in to apply, it may direct you directly to the institution's website. It may give you instructions to apply, like to connect with the employer, like message the employer about the position and so forth. But you won't be able to see that information until you actually log into your account, but we'll do that shortly. And then you can also see any other jobs that may be posted by the institution. And so if an institution has multiple postings, you can see like what else may be open there that may fancy your interests. And then I'm gonna go back to the search results. And so one thing I do want to bring to your attention here is the advanced search feature. And so if you utilize the advanced search feature, it brings this drop down here. And so if you have various things in mind in terms of like geographical location, institutional type, even how much money you want to make, you can indicate these things here. And then you can go ahead and update your results, and then it will yield what you are looking for based off of what you indicated here. And so a really great feature to help you filter through a number of positions that keeps getting added to the website daily. If you also click on this button, this text box here that says select category, it also allows you to search for the position based off of functional area. So if you know you are interested in career services, you could click that option and update your results, and it'll show any positions that are related to career services. And so here it yielded 3 results. And then if you need to clear things out, again, you can click this X here, or you can click reset search, and then it'll clear your screen out and bring you back to the job search screen. Kirsten, would you like to talk a little bit more about the difference between a premium event post and posts that may not have that?
I will, yes. And I am having some internet problems. So if at any point you can't hear me, just chat and then I'll turn it back over to you if I buffer or freeze. So as a candidate, you really don't need to worry much about the difference. That's really a difference for the employers. They have the choice when they purchase their job post for the event to be premium or just an event post. So for any posts that you see that don't have that blue box, such as the one at the top of that screen, means they are not participating in the actual event, okay? Which means they're not interviewing, you can't contact them as part of the virtual event. So any institution that is participating in the virtual event will have that blue box that either says event post or premium event post. The difference is event post is only viewable with the details to candidates who have registered for the event. The premium event post is viewable, the details, to anybody who is on the TPE job board, whether you've registered for the event or not. So you might be thinking, well, I've registered. If I could have still seen all those details, why did I register? I could have saved $25, for example. So you still have added features that we're going to continue to walk through by virtue of being a registered candidate. The way you can connect with employers, your opportunities to contact employers, to have the interview schedules, as well as the additional resources are still only available to registered candidates for the event. So candidates that have registered, for example, have a candidate dashboard that will look very different than non-registered candidates. And we'll walk through that, but that's the difference between the event posts. As you're looking at all those, and Kirby referenced where they post their application materials, the majority of schools link directly to their HR site. Very few schools will actually have you apply through the TPE system. There could be some that say, please upload or send us through the system your resume or cover letter. The majority just put in their university link. They're all a little bit different. So the most important piece of advice is just make sure you're paying attention to their application details. So each employer has to, it's a mandatory box that they have to fill out with application instructions. So they're putting that information in. Just make sure you're looking at that so that you are responding to the way that they want you to connect with them. We got a question. I'll just answer it since I'm in that. What is the incentive of employers? Just lost it. It came directly to me, but it's a good question for others. What is the incentive of employers posting their position with TPE as opposed to their own HR? Really, it's just because, you know, this way you're not having to go to each individual campus to search for what they have open. If they're just posting it outside of our website, right, it wouldn't come up in your search. And, you know, the other thing is for them to choose to come to TPE and participate with TPE means they are also looking for TPE candidates. So when you apply to their job, you know, this is where, you know, recommendation would be as you're submitting your cover letter or your resume, if you're still applying through their HR system, is making sure that you reference that you are a TPE participant, right? That is a value add for these employers who are doing their recruiting, because they will still continue to get applicants that are not part of TPE. But the reason they come back year after year is because they know the quality of candidate that comes through the TPE process is a stronger quality of candidate. And we're not going to go into it tonight, but we have data that shows exactly that. So you're not doing yourself any favors if you don't mention that you're a TPE candidate, right? So even if you're applying through their HR system, you still want to make that connection through TPE, acknowledging that you're a candidate, and then we'll actually show you how you can reach out and connect with them through the system.
And we have a number of folks who utilize the TPE website that may not be participating in the on-site, the virtual or on-site event. And so I think about some, as I was navigating my mid-level search, I frequented the TPE website daily to see what positions were being posted there. Because sometimes folks post exclusively to certain sites, and some folks choose TPE to serve as that exclusive site because they know the amount of candidates that that come through that would like jobs and are highly qualified for them. And so as you, no matter where you're at in your career search, and whether you're participating in the event or not, the website is a great resource for you. So, all right, good question. And then I'm just going to take us to one additional piece that is on the navigation bar that I didn't go to, which is under the resources section here. And so you see there's career sources, resources, events, and blogs. We thoroughly encourage you all to check out these things that are listed here, because we are constantly adding to this section throughout the year. We're not just solely about our event that happens in the spring. We're also about educating and connecting folks year round. And so I just went to the events section here, and you'll see here our featured event is TPE Virtual starting March 1st. But if you scroll down, you can see some of the other events that we have coming up or has happened so far. And so currently you all are attending the Navigating the TPE website and interviewing scheduling session. But we have a couple other sessions that are coming up between now and the virtual event. And so we have the Avoiding Interview Bias session for employers. We have Becoming Empowered in a Virtual Candidate Experience that's coming up. And then of course our virtual event that's happening. And if you scroll down further, you can see some of our, so ignore the date, but these are some of our sessions that previously happened that have been recorded. And it gives you some insight into what was shared there. So this is kind of a quick way to navigate to our YouTube site and check out some of our previous recorded sessions.
And Kirby, if you scroll up to the not the virtual event, but scroll down a little bit to the first event, it says check out the video library in our TPE YouTube channel. So we have dozens upon dozens of sessions that have been pre-recorded that are there, some from as early as last week, some from a few years ago. So you can search by topic, but just by looking, you can see we did one on working internationally. We did the Jumpstart. You can see Christian there for a TPE story short with his smiling face. So lots of different sessions there as well. You know, some may be a little bit less relevant because they might be from a few years ago, but there could still be really great nuggets of information that are in there. So definitely make sure that you check those out.
Yeah, cool. And then I'm going to take us back to the page to show you one more thing before handing it over to Kirsten, sorry, to talk about the profile. And so one other thing I wanted to share with you all is the blog section of our resources as well. And so this here is just an update, the update we released last summer, I believe, about what was going on with TPE Virtual. But here is oftentimes too where we have different blog posts that are shared about transferable skills. We shared information about some processes that we have. And so if there's particular things that you may be looking for, we have a variety of different practitioners that contribute to the blogs as well for you to check out. Some that may be a little dated, but are still relevant for you all. And then with that, I'll turn it over to Kirsten to walk you through the profile and dashboard.
Great. All right, so I'm going to quickly share my screen. So when we left off, this was what you saw. Are you able to see my screen okay? Thumbs up. Great. So this was the website that you were able to see on Kirby's screen. So I did log in, right? She talked about the logged out versus logged in version. So you'll log in using your name and email that you set up. So Kirby went through kind of this hamburger menu on the left that has everything. On the right-hand side is a logo that would potentially have your initials, or if you, it should have your initials. So we have a pretend account, Candidate Services, so CS. And if you log in there, you can see, so you would have a very similar one. So my candidate account, for example, would say, hi, Kirsten Fox. But for today, we'll walk you through the Candidate Services one. So it has all this different information, right, including your transaction history. So if you need to submit a receipt for the $25 that you paid, if you're getting refunded or reimbursed from a school, for example, you can go there to get that information. You can edit your profile, view your profile, and then the dashboard settings. And then some of those other aspects that were on the other side are here again, because they're important. But just to show you a little bit of your dashboard. So this is a function that is only available to people who are logged in. And then you'll see elements such as TPE virtual event links that are only available to those who have registered for the event. And we're going to talk more about the actual schedule here in a second, and Kirby's going to walk you through that. But as you were searching jobs, if you wanted to favorite them, they would all appear right here in your favorited jobs area. You can also save searches, and you can favorite institutions, okay? So this is a great feature for kind of quick glance to be able to come back. Maybe you're not sure that you want to apply, or you see something and you're like, oh, I want to just come back and look at those details a little bit more. You can save a search, you can favorite a job, you can favorite an institution. There's also an area where it will have recommended jobs. So this is based on what you put in your profile, right? An algorithm will then potentially recommend jobs. Sometimes you might feel like, oh, that is exactly what I'm interested in. And then other times you might be like, I don't remember putting that I was willing to live in Alaska, right? Who knows where? So I think Alaska would be very cool. So you can also see those searches. And that's right. You can keep going down. If you need to change any of your account settings, you can also do that. So your dashboard is really important for a few different reasons. One, because you can quickly edit your profile, right? So it all kind of lives here. So this is where you can put in your information that you have. If just like you can do a job search, employers can do a candidate search and might be looking for candidates that mention they were interested in a certain functional area. So you can add to your functional areas at any time. You can add to state preferences if you want. Some people are open to a search anywhere. Some have a geographic area. This is where I would say if you have a preference, but you're still really open, I probably wouldn't put too much in because you'd still want to come up on other employer searches, for example. And if you preference other ones, you might not be able to then be viewed from, University of Colorado if you didn't preference Colorado, as an example. But you can still preference types of schools. We've got a few different institution categories. So type of year, right? 2-year, 4-year, less than 2-year are only 3 options. You can put all of them in. So I could put both, 2-year and 4-year, right? Types of institutions, nonprofit, for-profit, private school. Maybe I'm not interested in a private for-profit. I realize, oh, that's not what I meant. I go back in and I say, oh, right, I wanted a private not-for-profit, right? So if you're not sure about all the differences in institution type, then you might just want to leave it blank. This is really your opportunity to preference what you want. You can put additional information. Lots of people, Christian and Nick did a session the other day on kind of e-portfolios, and this is a place that you can put additional information, right? You can link to a LinkedIn profile. You can put a website if you have a personal website. You can put your Facebook profile if you want, a Twitter profile if you want. I think people have different expectations of what that might be. You might have both a school Facebook profile, for example, and a private one, and maybe you want to put your professional one. If you blog, you're a blogger, right? And that you feel that could give an employer insight into your candidacy. So this is a really great area for you to make it yours, but you also don't have to put anything. If you're like, oh my gosh, that just feels like too much information, that's okay also, okay? You can put in all of your different work history, education, and then this is where you can upload different documents and they live on your profile. So we just have kind of tests here. So you can put a resume, you can put a cover letter. You have to have a resume to have your profile be public. Okay, that is one stipulation. So you can't have a profile that employers can see without, at the very least, a resume. So you do need to have that. All the other documents are your choice if you want to add them or not add them. And we put a writing sample, supplemental materials. Most employers aren't going to go through those. They're not going to necessarily look for them. So at this point, also knowing interviews are in 2 weeks, really focus on making sure you've got a resume and that your information is as current as you want. Those are really the 2 kind of priorities. At this point, you can always then come back and supplement it or complement it in other areas. So I reference public or private profile. So up here is a little toggle button. So I can make it private. If I make it private because I'm not ready for someone to see my resume, that's completely fine. However, if you're private, that means you cannot come up on any employer searches. And if you've reached out to them, they can't then find you back in the candidate search to reach out to you. Okay, so you definitely want to, if you want to be contacted by employers and have interviews scheduled, you definitely want to make sure you toggle it to a public profile. I know there are some candidates that don't really want others to know they're searching. And in that case, you can keep it private. You will not be able to take advantage of some of the scheduling aspects. You can still contact an employer. You would just want to tell them as you're messaging them, my profile is, I'm doing a private search or a confidential search at this point. So my profile is set to private. Here's my email address. I would love the opportunity to reach out, to connect with you or to have an interview. And you would just want to make sure that you're taking that initiative to let them know. Otherwise, they might come back and try to find you and get frustrated that they then can't find you in their candidate search. Okay. So the other element of the dashboard that is important that I just want to point out, going back to dashboard settings, is this TPE virtual event links. So like I said, we're going to go through the edit schedule. There are also links that we will continue to put here through the next 2 weeks. This will be where information lives come the week of the event. So we have roundtables, employer spotlights. We will post those links here so you can log in during that date and time to be able to access the information, right? Because there's events that are only for TPE registered candidates. So they'll be on your dashboard. So only those who have registered for the event will be able to access those sessions, for example. It also has the interview scheduling guide. So we're going to talk through it, but this will be a great resource for you to come back to that will answer a lot of the questions that you may have today. We'll still talk through them, but it will be a great quick reference afterwards as to how to actually schedule, where you connect with employers, and that information. So we will continue to use this TPE virtual event links for information over the next 2 weeks, okay? So know that that's there. And then the last thing that I'm gonna say before I turn it back over to Kirby. So we mentioned, she showed you when you were searching for jobs, how you could apply, how you could view them. So I'm gonna go into this University of South Alabama position. So because you're a registered candidate, you have the opportunity, you can apply now, which will go to the university link, but you can also contact the employer. And this will come through their email, but from you. So this is a perk of being a registered candidate, where you're able to connect with the employers who are actually registered for the event. And that's where you'll post, questions. If you have an interest in interviewing with them, you'll be able to express your interest there. I'm going to pause. I just kind of wanted to show you where everything was, and then Kirby's going to take a deeper dive into the actual process.
So Kirsten just did a deep dive of your dashboard as well as your profile. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about scheduling and some tips. So as she pointed out earlier, you'll click on the view or edit schedule button here from your profile page, your dashboard. And then it'll bring you to this page here. One thing that we want you all to note, especially for folks who are not on the Eastern time zone, for the purposes of the virtual event, interviews in terms of how it's shown here are in Eastern Standard Time. And so for those of you all that are in different time zones, you may want to use your own calendaring, just so you know what it is based off of your time zone as well. But just keep that in mind so you don't get confused. So you can adjust the way in which you view your schedule. And so right now it is on week mode, but you can also view just singular days at a time, whatever you prefer. There's also the option that for you to print your schedule out if you fancy utilizing some paper as well. Some of you all may have the question, does this schedule interface with different like clients such as like an Outlook calendar or things like that? Kirsten, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you can export, but not necessarily for it to like mirror like live updates. So you would have to export every time in order to include it in your like Outlook or Google Calendar. Okay, she's done.
Correct, Kirby. You would have to export it. They won't automatically sync.
Yeah. So just as an FYI there. But some of you all may be wondering, like, so how does interview scheduling happen? So you as a candidate, you can't add interviews to your calendar. The employer would have to do that. And so let's say an institution reaches out to you, said, after they saw your profile, said, oh, you seem like someone who would potentially be like someone we would like to interview for this position. Would you be interested in interviewing with us? And so you would go through that email correspondence. And then the two of you all would mutually identify a time that would work for your schedule. And so from there, once that time is identified, the employer would then add this to add an interview to your calendar. And you would then receive an email notification saying that this institution added an interview for this time on this day. So interviews are designated by this blue kind of color coding that is on the screen. And so so far, what you see here is that there's a couple of interviews scheduled so far. These are test positions, by the way. And if you click on the actual interview, it'll bring up some additional details. And so it'll share again that all interviews are in Eastern time zone. So keep that in mind. It'll share what the title of the interview is, some additional job details. It'll also indicate the type of like interview round. And so we have institutions that engage in first round interviews, second round interviews, sometimes third rounds or even fourth round interviews. And so depending on how you move throughout their process, they'll indicate what type of the interview round here. They'll also indicate some additional notes here in terms of what else they want to communicate with you. One of the things that we want to note for you all, especially as it relates to this virtual event, is that employers should be utilizing this notes box to indicate the modality of the interview. And so we recognize that sometimes some institutions may use telephone, some institutions may use Zoom and so forth, and they should be sharing this information in this notes box with you, as well as the like actual information for how to access that modality. So whether it's a Zoom link, a Google Hangout link, a phone number, what have you. And so that information would be put there. And then as I mentioned before, you can use the export option to export to any sort of third-party platform that you would want to use. There's also this delete button here. I'm gonna pause on that before I go into a little bit more detail about it. But be cautious of if you delete this, because again, you can't add interviews to your calendar, only employers can. And so be cautious of if you were to press that, but I'll come back to it in a little bit, just a little bit more. One other thing to note is that interviews can also be 30 minutes or 60 minutes, and you'll note that as well in the interview like details. And then if you scroll back up to the top, or you'll see this thing that says add personal event. And so what a personal event is an opportunity for you to block off your calendar based off of some things that you may like have going on. And it signals to employers as well as that that time that you have on your calendar is blocked. It doesn't give them the information as to why, it just indicates that this time is not available. And so a practice that we really encourage candidates to use when scheduling interviews is blocking off time in terms of when you need to do interview prep or when you're not ready to interview. So if you know you're not a morning person and you don't want to have interviews before 10 a.m., you can block that time off, but also keep in mind that you may want to adjust some things if that's the only time that may work for an institution and you're interested. You can also block off time for when you're like want to be done with the day. And so if you know you don't want to interview past a certain time, just for your own wellness and so forth, you can indicate that there. One of the things that we also encourage you all to do is add some break times in terms of like lunch. You want to make sure you all are eating and taking some time to have some downtime, relax, to regroup and so forth. And so you can put those times there. And we also recommend as you start getting interviews added to your calendar that you add some time right before the interview and a little time after the interview, just to give you some processing time in case, let's say the interview goes over, there's some tech concerns, and just again, to give you some breathing room to just reflect on the interview or even prep for any other interviews that you may have. But to do that, you would go ahead and actually click on Add Personal Event. And then here you'll indicate whatever details that you want to put there. So title, you would indicate the day in which you want this personal event to be. You'll indicate the start and end times. And then if there's any notes that you want to put for yourself there, and then you would click the submit button and then it would be added to the calendar in the grayed out like boxes. And so that's how you would navigate adding personal events. And as I stated before, if the time is blocked off, it'll show that up that way to employers. And so if you're trying to navigate getting some interview scheduling taken care of, and that's the only time that may work based off of what you're communicating with the employer, you would then just go to the invitation here, and then you would click delete, and it'll ask you, are you sure you want to delete? And you'll then click confirm. And then it'll say event successfully removed, and it'll then remove it from the calendar. I see there's a few things coming up in the chat. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for 1 second. Kirsten's answering all the questions. I see you. Thank you. Thank you. Cool. So let me go back to sharing my screen. All right. So some of you all must be thinking about like, so what happens, and this does happen, what happens if an institution just randomly puts a interview on my schedule and I'm not aware of it, or I'm not interested in, or anything like that? We encourage you to actually reach out to that institution to say, just to clarify whether it's a scheduling error or things along those lines, or also just to say, thank you for indicating interest in interviewing. However, I'm not interested in this opportunity at that time. And you can ask them to remove the interview. You can also do so yourself. However, we encourage that there's some communication between you and the employer, so there aren't mixed messages that are sent about what the error or concern may be. But employers, we have instructed and have thoroughly encouraged them to communicate with candidates first before just plopping interviews on your calendar. So, yeah, I think that is all that I wanted to share about scheduling interviews. Kirsten, did I miss anything?
No, I think that was great. You know, we also know that everyone's coming into this with some different questions, so we want to make sure we leave time for you to be able to ask those. There have been a couple good ones in the chat, and just in case people are, you know, watching this on a phone or don't have access to the chat. So 2 things that came through, because they are really great questions. So when you, just to reiterate, I think this was said before, but when you do message employers through that contact employer button, you'll get a pop-up that will give you the box to type in the message, but the message will actually arrive to their email box. It doesn't live in the system. Similarly, when they hit their blue button that says contact candidate, they'll get a pop-up. They can write in the message box, hit send, and it will come to your email. So I know some of you have multiple email addresses, and some people create an email just for the job search. You'll just want to make sure you're checking whatever email is on file with your TPE profile, because that is where all candidate messages will appear. You will also be notified through that email every time a schedule, there's a schedule change, right? So if an employer schedules an interview, or if they have to cancel an interview and request a new time, all of those will come through your email. So just make sure you're checking. One of the other messages was, when employers are looking at your schedule, will they be able to see what you title them? No, and actually employers won't be able to see your actual schedule. When they go in to search for an interview, only the times that you both have available will appear. So they don't actually see anything on your schedule. Just, right, it might say Wednesday, 3 o'clock, 3:30, 4, 4:30, Friday, 2, 2:30, 3, because those are your only mutual times. And that's what they'll see.
We're getting a couple questions.
So some great questions, and we can both, yeah. So do we need to apply through the employer's website for the position before the interview dates? I'll take this one, and then Kirby, if you want to take the next one. So just since I'm already talking, so it depends is the answer. Some schools will say that you have to already have been in their university application system to be able to have an interview. So that's really dependent on the school, which is why you want to make sure you're looking at their application details. So some of them could say you have to apply by next Friday, or by February 28th. Others don't even need to have you already apply to interview. You could just request an interview and reach out and say, I'm really interested in learning more about your position. I'd love the opportunity to interview. And you can have an interview with them without having the application process. And then they might follow up and say, great, I really enjoyed this. We encourage you to apply for the position. So, right, two different ends of the spectrum. It's really, I know it's not ideal because it's the inconsistency, but each institution has to do their recruiting process differently. And so that's really up to the discretion of the employer. So just make sure you read, because what you don't want to do is reach out to someone and then they say, oops, well, sorry, we don't have your application, so we can't interview you.
The next question is, do interviews only happen during the virtual or on-site event? That also depends. It depends on how the institution decides to set up their process. And so some institutions may conduct first and second round interviews, or even however many round interviews they want during the on-site event. There may be other institutions that decide to just like to do their first round or their screening interviews leading up to the event, and then offer folks that are participating in the virtual event a second round or a third round interview during the week of TPE virtual. There may be some folks that solely just decide they want to do first round interviews at TPE, and then they decide to do any consecutive round interviews outside of TPE virtual. You'll also notice that a lot of folks, some institutions may utilize TPE as an opportunity to identify candidates that they would want to bring to like a final round process. And those final round interviews may take place after the event. And so again, it depends on what the institution's process is as it relates to that. But interviews can happen all the time, at this point.
Yeah, and I can let you know, for example, I talked to 2 employers today who posted positions, but they're not even sure that they're going to either have it. One wasn't sure that their school actually, it's definitely going to be approved. They're just not sure that it will officially be in the HR process to be able to conduct interviews. And the other just knew that they're not going to be able to have their search committee ready by that week, but they're still posting their jobs because they want the connections to happen. But their first round interviews may actually happen after March 5th. Okay, so know that as well. If you're feeling like, gosh, some of these schools I'm just not hearing from, it's for some of them it's earlier in their process because each school is different. So they know that their job will be posted until May 1st, and your candidate event status also stays up until May 1st. So we very much assume that lots of connections will continue to be made after these 3 interview days. We aren't scheduling formal interview days beyond these 3 at this point, but we absolutely anticipate that many connections will continue to be made after we get through March 5th. I can't remember, Christian, Nick, and Kirby, we talked about it yesterday. I sort of said like it's the kickoff to the rest of the recruiting season, really this week. It's just the beginning. There was another just kind of administrative question. If you've registered for the TPE account, is that the same as being registered for the event? Nope. So those are 2 different registration processes. You need to have a candidate account, which is free on the website. And anybody can create a free TPE candidate account. But to register for the actual event, it's a $25 registration fee. And that will give you all of the behind the scenes access. It will have you show up on the employer searches. It will give you the opportunity to have the interview scheduling, to contact the candidate, to contact the employers directly, and then have access to the week of programs that will also take place. And at the end, we'll let Christian and Nick kind of give a sneak peek as to what some of those roundtables and programs will be. And there's some candidate coaching. It's a really cool week that they have planned. That is only available then to those who have paid the $25 registration for the actual event.
I can answer this next.
Yeah, well, there's a couple. Yeah, I was about to say there's a couple questions coming in about navigating TPE, past experiences, and so forth. So Nick and Christian, if you want to share, feel free.
Yeah, so to the question from, I believe, Arlene, and I hope I'm pronouncing their name right. Did any of the panelists in this session obtain a job placement through TPE? Experience tips. Thank you. So yes, I obtained, both Kirby and I think, obtained our roles through TPE. And so shout out to TPE. I enjoyed placement. For me, it was an opportunity to interview with many institutions in a small amount of time. It was really helpful, in the context of having to attend on-campus interviews and things of that nature. It was really helpful to have all of the institutions in one place and not have to worry about going to the campus or navigating the campus and all of these different things. So for me, I found that really beneficial. And I also found like the ability to use interview scheduling in that way, to use a system for interview scheduling that everyone had to respect was also helpful as well, versus, doing your own independent searches, which can be beneficial and fruitful as well. So it really depends on what you need in terms of ease and access. But the TPE experience was helpful in also feeling more confident over time with your interview skills. So each interview I had, I felt more comfortable and confident in my interview skills over time. And so that's what I would add to that question.
I would also, I also received my first job right out of TPE. Just the connection that comes from other folks that are going through this process too. It's like you're doing your individual search, but with other people. And so the opportunity for you to connect with folks who are in a similar position to you, looking for some sort of, whether it's their first opportunity or their next opportunity, it just allows for you all to be a support system for one another, be able to share experiences, make new friends, and so forth. And so that definitely was a very beneficial part of participating in the placement experience, as well as the exposure to additional resources that are just being offered all under kind of like one hub. And so if there were like the candidate coaching opportunities to participate in what was formerly known as TPE Bootcamp, which is now TPE Academy, the various different resources that come with that. And then again, also the like various discussion-based conversations that can be had on different tips and so forth. One other thing that I would say is try to go into the experience, well, one, open-minded, but also two, with some idea of kind of what you're looking for. There may be moments in which an institution may reach out to you and you're like, you know what, this is not it. And that's okay, right? In the same way in which an institution can tell you no, you can tell an institution no as well. But also be open to something that you may have not considered before. I know a number of colleagues and peers who never thought they would be working at the institution in which they're at now, but they gave themselves a shot to connect with that individual or institution at TPE. Other questions? We saw that there was a question about resume length and so forth. And there's going to be various perspectives about that, but our career expert, Kirsten Fox, gave her insight with regards to that. And so she stated that for new professionals, she suggests no more than 2 pages to a resume. Make sure that your resume is detailed and that a reviewer has an understanding of what you did. But also make sure that the resume speaks to the job that you're applying for. And so no one resume should look exactly the same. Like we know folks tend to do some recycling, which is okay, but also make sure you're putting in the due diligence to tailor the resume based off of what you are applying for.
Yeah. That was actually Christian who gave that advice, but it was so good. I'll take it as my own, as if I offered that advice. But that's great. But the only other thing I would add is don't add things to just take up space. So if you've presented the same session at 7 consecutive RA trainings, you don't need to list each one of those sessions 7 times, because then it's taking away from their ability to pull new information and value add in other places. So just remember, the goal of the resume is to get to the interview state, right? So you want to make sure that you're putting enough in there that they want to learn more, But as Kirby said, tailor it to the job. I know that can be hard when you're applying to, if there's 80 jobs that you're interested in, but you can also figure out which ones are you really interested in and spend a little bit more time. Actually take keywords from their qualifications and their expectations and in their job description and put those in where you've got those transferable skills, and use even some of that key language wherever you can. So if they say you're going to control a budget of something or other, and you've controlled a budget as a student organization advisor, mention that using some of their same language. Also try to quantify things where you can put in numbers. And then the other advice I would give on the resume, just really quickly since it came up, is make sure that you are speaking to your accomplishments, not just the tasks that you did, right? Because you could list kind of, here's the job requirements and just list them, but that doesn't tell the employer that you did them well and you actually accomplished things, right? So you can start your kind of bullet with, I supervised 5 RAs and I continue to build really good teams as a result of doing X, Y, and Z. However, whatever that might be, but make sure you're speaking more to the accomplishment as opposed to just the task.
Any final questions before we wrap up and talk about what's next on the candidate development series? Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Nick and Christian to talk about the next candidate development session that's coming up next week, I think.
Absolutely. So next week, Monday, so that is the 22nd from 3 to 4 p.m. Nick and I will be doing a presentation on becoming empowered in this virtual experience. And so, when you're interviewing for opportunities, I just did an interview like 3 weeks ago, and it's all virtual and it's different than being in person. And how do you understand body language when cameras are off or when you're on the phone, and when you're presenting who you are, how do you feel more secure in that? So we're going to talk about everything from how to just feel empowered in this new virtual landscape if you're doing virtual interviews, but then also give some good tips about resumes, cover letters, and talk a little bit about e-portfolios. We did that last time, but just going to make sure people in this space also hear about that. And then as Kirby and others have shared, we're also going to do a few opportunities through TPE. So we have a session on Monday about I got a job through TPE, and no, it wasn't just housing. So yes, you can get housing jobs and non-housing jobs out through TPE. We're also going to do one about rejection. So what's for you won't pass you, and how to embrace rejection. There might be a time where you find the ideal institution, but it just doesn't work out, and that is okay. And so how do you understand that, and how do you move forward with that? The next session that we're going to do is on a Wednesday, where we talk about the importance of lifelines and how to create support systems as you're going through this job search process. On Thursday, we talk about the importance of applying what you learn from one interview to the next. And then on Friday, we talk about the next opportunity. So if you were not able to sign up for the TPE Academy, that is okay, because we'll have another opportunity coming up on our Backpack Institute, which focuses on the 90-day cohort. And Nick, I want to pass it to you for anything else and things that you want to add on.
No, I will also encourage you all to check out the TPE YouTube channel for all of our past sessions and resources for you to be able to see some of the things that we've already discussed. Many of the questions that you all have asked and may have to ask are also covered on the YouTube channel as well.
All righty. Well, with that, we thank you all so much for attending this session. As we stated before, the session is being recorded, and we will upload to our YouTube channel within the coming days. We are excited to interact with those of you that are participating in TP Virtual within the next week and a half. Sending well wishes your way. Take care, stay hydrated, stay moisturized, and see you next time.